It was just after sunrise, the kind of morning where the mist still clung to the grass and the neighborhood was quiet except for the occasional bird call. My wife, Emily, had just poured herself a cup of coffee and settled onto the porch swing with her badge tucked neatly out of sight in the pocket of her flannel shirt. To anyone else, she looked like an ordinary suburban wife enjoying the peace of a Saturday morning. Nobody would have guessed she was the sheriff of the entire county, the one person everyone in law enforcement answered to. That peace didn't last. The silence was shattered by the sudden screech of tires, followed by the heavy crunch of boots stomping up the driveway. 4 uniformed police officers stormed our front yard with hands already hovering near their holsters. My heart lurched as I stepped outside, and before I could even ask what was happening, the lead officer barked, "We're here to arrest Emily Carter, by order of the HOA." For a moment, I thought it was a sick joke. The Homeowners Association had been at war with us for months, complaining about the color of our shutters, the length of our grass, even the flagpole Emily had installed in our yard. Their president, a woman named Linda, had made it her personal crusade to drive us out. But this, calling in the police to arrest my wife, it felt like something out of a twisted sitcom. I turned to Emily. She hadn't moved an inch, her coffee cup still in her hand, steam curling in the cool air. But I could see it, the faint tightening of her jaw, the cold fire in her eyes. She was calm, but beneath that calm was a storm waiting to break. "I think you've made a mistake," Emily said evenly. "Ma'am, step forward," the officer ordered, clearly nervous but trying to act tough. "We've got a report from the WA that you've been in violation of multiple ordinances and failed to appear for their hearings. You're under arrest." The absurdity was almost laughable. WA hearings weren't law, they had no authority to issue arrest orders. But the officers weren't laughing. They were reaching for handcuffs. That's when Emily stood. Slowly, deliberately, she set her coffee cup on the porch railing with a soft clink, and with one fluid motion, she pulled her badge from her pocket and flipped it open. The sun caught the silver star perfectly, glinting in their stunned faces. "Sheriff Emily Carter," she said, her voice cutting through the morning like a blade. "And you 4 are about 30 seconds away from making the biggest mistake of your careers." The lead officer froze mid-step, his eyes darting from the badge to her face. You could almost hear the gears grinding in his head as he realized what he'd just walked into. The others faltered, glancing at each other, unsure whether to proceed or retreat. Then Linda appeared, HOA Karen herself, striding down the sidewalk with a smug grin plastered across her face. "Don't let her intimidate you," she screeched. "She thinks she's above the law because she's married to some nobody. Arrest her. She violated the WA covenant, and she's not exempt." Emily turned her head slowly toward Linda, the kind of look that could stop a grown man's heart. "Linda," she said, almost softly, "you just sent police officers to unlawfully detain the sheriff of this county. Do you understand what that means?" For once, Linda faltered, but only for a second. I don't care who you are. Nobody disrespects this WA." What happened next was pure, quiet fury. Emily pulled out her radio, clipped at her hip, and spoke into it with absolute authority. "Unit 12, Unit 15, I have 4 officers acting under false pretenses at my residence. I need immediate backup." The color drained from the lead officer's face. They all knew what that meant. Within minutes, the sound of sirens cut through the neighborhood, not just 1 or 2 but a fleet. Sheriff's deputies swarmed in, surrounding the scene, their vehicles blocking off the street. The officers who had come to arrest Emily were quickly pulled aside, stripped of their weapons, and questioned on the spot. They stammered excuses, pointing fingers at Linda, who was now shrieking that this was all a misunderstanding. But Emily didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She simply stood there on the porch, arms folded, eyes locked on the woman who thought she could bring her down. "Linda," she said, "you have the right to remain silent. And if you don't exercise it, I'll make sure you regret every word that comes out of your mouth." The neighborhood had gathered by then, drawn out by the chaos. People whispered, gasped, recorded on their phones. For months, everyone had suffered under Linda's petty tyranny, her endless fines and threats. And now, here she was, cornered, exposed, and powerless against the very woman she'd tried to humiliate. Linda's face twisted with rage, but she had no ground left to stand on. Emily didn't cuff her right then and there, though I could see in her eyes she wanted to. Instead, she let the deputies escort Linda away for questioning, her empire of intimidation crumbling in front of everyone. When the dust settled, Emily finally picked her coffee back up, now cold but still untouched. She took a sip, then glanced at me with the faintest hint of a smile. "That," she said, "is how you deal with an HOA." And just like that, the quiet morning returned, but the neighborhood would never be the same again.